I think when people talk about having eating disorders or like a disordered eating pattern is what I would call that. We think about girls that are really, really skinny, really frail, really thin. But the reality of it is that a lot of girls who have issues with disordered eating look normal. Like I was at a heavier weight and I ate like that for almost a year. Hey, what's up, you guys, and welcome back to Model Behavior. It's Macy. I'm really excited to be recording this morning because it's been a minute since I've talked to you, so I am excited to be back. I don't know, I feel like fall is always kind of a busy time with my work, so it's always kind of just a grind. Anyways, TikTok update. I've been posting pretty consistently on there, and it's been pretty fun. I like the app is super interesting. So I started posting like seriously on the app in like April of this year. Like I had posted a few beforehand, just like one-offs, but I actually started taking it like not seriously, but I started posting more in April. And so that was like 5 months ago. And it's kind of crazy how it's gone since then. Like I don't have like a huge following, but I feel like the following that I do have, everybody like engages super well with my content. And it's so fun because it's great to have this ability to just like, pull my phone out and be like, what do you guys think about this? And like have that discussion. At the same time, lately, I've been noticing that my videos have been getting pushed out to the wrong people. And by the wrong people, I mean men. Like I post stuff for girls, like I really do. And so a lot of my perspectives, maybe I'm a little harsh on the men, but I don't cater to that audience. Not that you guys don't matter, but like it's just not really my niche. And so occasionally I'll post things and just get a bunch of angry comments from guys like rah, 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 rah. But now I post a lot more like lifestyle dating content, but it's tough to be like a dating content creator. I wouldn't consider myself a content creator. I'm just like posting for fun. But what was I going to say? It's kind of tough being a dating content creator because like I don't want to put too much of my personal life out there. Like I don't want to be messy, I guess. Like I am okay with like being vulnerable on the internet, and I feel like it's important to like show your personality and stuff, but I don't want to be messy ever. And also, I don't like talking about my current dating life because I know that some guys like watch my podcast. And so it's like, I don't want them coming on here and being like, wait, is this play about us? So like I usually try to wait. Anyways, a lot of you guys have been asking for updates on my dating life. And to be perfectly frank, I don't have any updates for you because I have not been going out on dates. I deleted my Hinge like back in the spring, but I, sometimes would re-download it and have it for like a few days and then like delete it again. The thing that really gets me fed up about Hinge is like with my demographic, it gets a little bit difficult because there's obviously just like less single people out there. It's not like when you're like in your early 20s and everybody's single. And so it's just like kind of fun and flirty and fresh. That's just really not the case. And so I was actually like talking to Megan about this because the Denver season of Love is Blind got announced and the cast got announced, and I don't really want to like talk about the show too much on here just because like I'm friends with a couple of the cast members and I kind of want to just like respect their privacy. I'm gonna watch though. I'm gonna be locked in. Anyways, since the cast got announced, people have come out about one guy in particular that was like scamming people with his like business, quote unquote. I was telling Megan, I was like, I'm glad that he's part of the cast because I feel like that's pretty representative of the Denver late 20s, early 30s single population as a whole. With 50% of single guys in Denver, there is something nefarious afoot with them. And what I mean by that is that they always have something that's a little not quite right going on, whether they're like scamming people or they want you to pay for everything because they're cheap, or they're extremely wounded by their past relationship and they're just caught up on their ex and they will literally never get over her. Like no matter what, There is always something nefarious afoot with these men. I shouldn't say always, 50% of the time. I'm just like, yeah, that's like super par for the course with Denver. Like, it's just like kind of the island of misfit toys out here. Anyways, this weekend, I am going to the Tate McRae concert. I'm so excited. Her tickets were so expensive. Like, we got like, they're kind of nosebleed seats. But I don't really care because at the same time I'm like we'll still be able to see. I'm almost like should I bring my binoculars, but I feel like it's fine. Like you can see decently anyways. I might bring my binoculars. I don't know if they'll let me bring them in. I'm going to be like a woman at the opera at the Tate McRae concert, just peering through my little spotting scope, looking at Tate performing the modified choreography for Revolving Door that I'm kind of sad that she modified. But I've never been so excited to go to a concert. Anyways, then I have a shoot this weekend and I am pretty excited for it. I'm a little bit nervous. So I kind of took a break from modeling for like the last year or so. I've kind of talked a little bit about this before, but I was really working hard to get like my mental health in check and just making like some pretty significant strides in that area. I am generally like, I have a pretty thick skin when it comes to receiving criticism, and definitely in modeling and in the modeling industry, you get a lot of criticism, and it's kind of flippant, and you're just like, whoa. But it is, a aesthetic job. Like you're not being paid to like share ideas or to show your personality. Like you're being paid for your looks. And so after a bit, I was just going through a lot of changes in my life, and I was just feeling a little bit unstable. Like I wouldn't be able to like walk into castings and feel perfectly confident. And so I was like, you know what? It's probably good. I'll just take a step back, because it also kind of just organically happened. I don't think I've talked about this before on here, but when I first got signed to model, I was at like my heaviest weight that I've ever been at. I had the Nexplanon, like, which is like the birth control that goes in your arm. Sounds just like the commercial. Anyways, and it made me gain a lot of weight, which I also kind of want to talk about my journey with birth control with you guys on here. It's kind of personal. So obviously, like, I don't ever want to be like, you should try this too, because like I can't give medical advice. Like I'm not that kind of doctor, but the Nexplanon was pretty tough. Like it wreaked havoc on my body. And so I gained a lot of weight from it, and it was pretty difficult. And I was also on different antidepressants at the time that were causing me to gain weight. So when I got signed to model, my skin was terrible. I was pretty heavy, and I'm not saying I was huge, but I was like a size 12. And I think it takes a lot being bigger to be really confident. So when I first got signed, I knew that I had the confidence. And I think that that's maybe what made me stand out from other people at the casting that I went to, the open casting. So that's, I think, why I got signed. But as you guys know, I've been going through a lot of just like personal, emotional life changes over the last year, and all good things. And so I've lost quite a bit of weight, especially like with me finding Pilates and Legree and my fitness journey. Like I've lost quite a bit of weight. So I actually went from being like a size 12 to now I'm like a size 4 or 6. And I don't really want to talk about like my size on here too much, because that's not what this podcast is about at all. But the way that my relationship has changed with my body has really, I don't know, it's really been an interesting journey for me. So I have a test shoot coming up this weekend, which is going to be my first shoot that I've done in like a year and a half. Not quite a year and a half, but it's been a really long time. And so today I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about like why I took a step back. Whoa, sorry, I need to move my leg. I just kicked the tripod so hard. Anyways, I wanted to talk today a little bit about like why I took a step back and kind of my thoughts on body positivity and like my journey, because it's not really something that I've talked about too much on here before. And I know that it's kind of a touchy subject, and I've gone through so many changes physically and emotionally in the last year and a half. But I think that as someone who was bigger, my experiences have been so different. And I want to talk about it today in the context of modeling, but I also want to talk about it just like in general. So I figured like we could talk about that today. I'm kind of excited too because I am really looking forward to this shoot this weekend, but it brings a lot of emotions. And so, yeah. So when I first got signed to model, I was booking a lot of jobs, which is pretty, I think, kind of standard when you first get signed because you're like a fresh face. And especially in the market that we're in here in Denver, there's really only like a few major brands that operate out of this city. And so they are always looking for like new, fresh faces for their new campaigns. And so I was booking like all of the big jobs. I was like working with big brands and it was really, really fun. I was having a lot of fun with it. But then I started losing weight. And I distinctly remember my last job with a really big brand here in the Denver area. I remember going in for a fitting and the designer was so frustrated because the clothes were like falling off of me. Like she was just like so upset because like I was working regularly for this brand. Like at a certain point one winter, I was like going in and working jobs like twice a week. It was very frequent that I was going in and doing things for this brand. And so I remember the last time that I basically got fired from that job because I lost weight. And you might be listening to this and thinking, like, if you're not in the modeling industry, you might be like, that's terrible. Why would they do that? Like, it makes sense because I was hired at a specific size. Brands have an idea for how they want to market their inclusivity and their body positivity. And so if their body positive model that they hired is no longer a certain size, then they're losing that body diversity. You know what I mean? And I knew that that was something that might happen because this is really something interesting to talk about because when I got signed at the same time as another girl. And oftentimes like my agent would like talk about us together, like, or if I was like asking her about like ways I could improve my book or something, like she would always bring up this other girl and like vice versa. Like we just got signed at the same time. And when we got signed, we were pretty much the exact same measurements. Like in every category, we were the same height. Obviously, her look was pretty different than mine. She's gorgeous. And then it's really interesting because then she ended up going on and having a ton of success and getting signed with multiple other agencies. And basically what ended up happening is that her new agents were like, you need to gain weight. And so while I was losing weight, she was actively like, and she's a very active girl, like trying to put on weight to appease these brands. And it worked for her. Like she's done huge campaigns for like Skims and Summer Fridays. Like she's worked with really big brands. And, but it's just interesting how the modeling industry works in that regard. A lot of times there's a market for main board straight size models, which is usually like between like a 0 and a 4. Like where I'm at now, I still wouldn't be considered a main board model, just because I'm not small enough for that. And I will never be. That's just the way my body is. And I'm really confident and happy with it now. But yeah, that's just how it is. So there's a huge market for sizes like 0 to 2. And then there's also a market for sizes like 12 and up. So the in-between sizes don't normally get a lot of love. I will say that there's certain, particularly like activewear brands that are starting to use more like in-between models, because I hate using the word mid-size because especially if you use the word mid-size on the internet, it really angers a lot of people because mid-size from a fashion perspective is usually sizes like 6 to 12 or 6 to 14, I think, because true plus size starts at 16. But people get really mad because in their mind it's like, well, you're size 6, like you're still really small. And like, yes, I agree with that, but like from a fashion perspective, from a clothing like apparel perspective, that is considered mid-size. So I would never like go out on the internet, like I'm obviously doing it now, but I feel like my podcast audience is totally different from like my TikTok audience. Like if I went on my TikTok right now and started making content related to mid-size modeling, I would get absolutely flamed. Emily D. Donato, who you might not recognize the name, but if you saw her, you would recognize her. She was like the face of Maybelline during like the 2010s. She started making mid-size modeling content as a size 8. And she's also, mind you, like almost 6 feet tall. And people were getting really upset that she was referring to herself as a mid-sized model. But at the time, it was really groundbreaking. Even now, it was really groundbreaking that she was booking the campaigns that she was with the brands that she was, because most of these brands would only ever have like size 00 to 2 supermodels. So then the fact that they had her was really amazing. And she talked a lot about being on set and like the sample size clothes not fitting her and designers getting annoyed because they like couldn't zip up the dress because they didn't read the prompt that the model's a size 8. Usually, like in modeling, you have to fit in the clothes. They're not going to make bigger clothes for you. So, and a lot of that is because when you're on set, like you're shooting new collection that's coming out in like a year and a half or something. And so they usually only have like a few sample sizes available because they don't have like the full line fully hashed out yet. And so it's not even personal. It's just like the way that it is. But yeah, obviously I've had that experience too of being on set and designers getting really, really frustrated that the clothes weren't fitting me. And it's hard because I always want to do a good job. I pride myself on like being able to go to set, being really professional, being on time, getting the shots that they need super quickly, trying to understand the theme and the creative direction so that I can like best contribute. Anyways, so all that's to say, my last job that I worked was that job where the clothes weren't fitting me, and then they never asked me back after that. And then I did a couple other jobs for other brands, just like e-commerce, and it was a similar scenario where I had updated my measurements and everything on the comp card, but my portfolio was not reflective of how I look now. It got to the point where I was modeling, booking jobs, and the creative directors loved me, but the clothes weren't fitting the way that they were supposed to. And they would comment on it quite a bit. They were like, oh, your book says you're a size medium, but like in your photos, you look like this. And so obviously there's like a disconnect. So I decided to take the last year and a half off just because I was like, my body was going through so many changes. I got my Nexplanon taken out. I started working out a lot more. Post heartbreak glow ups are always just so violently amazing. I don't think I could use those two words together in a sentence. But like girls always just get so hot after a breakup. Like it's just like inevitable. And I was so committed to the bit. Okay, I was like, I have to contribute to this cause of becoming really hot after I went through a breakup. But in the greater context of modeling, obviously when like your body goes through that many changes, your look dramatically changes. Like I was looking at headshots of myself from when I first signed to now, and I look dramatically different. Also, like I switched up my hair, which I love. It's expensive to keep up. But anyways, my look has changed a lot. So I'm really excited to like get back into it and see what happens with all of the modeling stuff happening. It's really gotten me reflective on my journey with my relationship with my body. So I wanted to talk about it. And also just disclaimer, I'm not anything that I'm like talking about that I've done, not necessarily to lose weight, but just to get healthier. This is not like, this is just what worked for me. And this is the way that I relate to my body. And I'm not in any way saying that it's the right way to do it. If anything, parts of it could definitely be a cautionary tale. I just want to kind of talk a little bit with you guys about that because I think like I always kind of had this struggle with my body image growing up, and being an athlete and just seeing how different body types performed in the position that I was in basketball. It kind of made me think a lot. So growing up, my family, my parents are both very much like, you need to be strong. Thankfully, it's not about being skinny or thin. It's about being strong. Because like I talk about, my family is a sports family. Like we're a very athletic family. Both my parents and my siblings, all of them played some sport in college. And so it was always the focus growing up of like, make sure you're getting enough to eat, make sure you're getting enough protein, carbs, blah, 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 because we were so active, like usually playing a couple sports at once. I remember when I was in high school, I would frequently go to basketball practice for like 2.5, 3 hours. Usually we would have lift after practice. And then after lift, I would go straight from there to tennis. And I would go and like train for tennis for a couple of hours. And that was just like my standard, like day to day, obviously on top of school. So that was always the focus, is getting fuel. But I remember the first time that I kind of started to feel self-conscious about my body was when I was in high school. I was on the volleyball team, which if you've played volleyball in high school, you're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Like you already know where this story is going. But I had a coach who she wouldn't ever say it out loud, but definitely like she considered size to be analogous with ability on the volleyball court, which is obviously not true. But I remember I had gone away one summer to a basketball camp, and I was at Gonzaga, and I just was really, really playing a ton of basketball that summer, like crazy, crazy hours. And like I said, during the school year, my athletic schedule was really crazy. But like this summer was like, I think it was like the summer between my junior and senior year of high school. And maybe it was the one before that. But anyways, I lost a little bit of weight. I didn't really notice it too much. Like my clothes were still fitting well and everything. I didn't even really notice it until I came back in the fall for volleyball tryouts. And I remember the head coach bringing me into her office and being like, wow, you've really lost a lot of weight. You look really good. And she all of a sudden like kind of started giving me more attention at practice. And I had noticed that with other girls that had tried out for the team previously who were maybe a little bit bigger, they just didn't quite get the attention despite the fact that they maybe were, quality athletes. And so I remember that was my first time of being like, oh, like, okay. And I felt kind of icky about that conversation because I'm like, if anything, like I didn't play volleyball at all that summer. It was not ever like one of my main sports. It was just like something I did for fun in the fall because I wanted something to do and to stay active. And so I was kind of just like, okay, well, that doesn't have anything to do with my ability though. And so it was a little strange that all of a sudden I was like getting more playing time and everything and being more included because I was smaller or allegedly smaller. Like I didn't even really notice it. And so that was kind of interesting. I really didn't know how to feel about all of that, especially since, like I said, I had spent the whole summer playing basketball and playing tennis tournaments and traveling around. Those were my two main sports, were basketball and tennis. And so I was like, if anything, I've got worse at volleyball because I haven't been playing. And so it was kind of frustrating because it's like, oh, okay, so it's not really performance-based, it's looks-based. And I don't want to say anything bad about that coach in particular because I think that what she said to me and the way that she was treating me because I was smaller, I think it was a result of maybe she had a mom who really pressured her to be thin, and that thinness was like the ultimate goal. It wasn't, your brains or your strength or anything like that. And so, like I said, I was really blessed to grow up in a household where my parents were very focused on, you need to get good grades. And so they really, really challenged me to, put in the effort because they knew that I could and I had the ability to do really well in that. And even in sports, I think the focus was never on weight or the way we looked. And so it was really nice because I talked to some girls who did not have that same experience. Maybe they were raised with brothers and their mom put a lot of pressure on them specifically and were very hard on them about their body. Like, oh, you're looking a little bigger. Oh, you're looking smaller. Like, you look great. Like, just not commenting on that, I feel like is the move. But I just see how it damaged them. And I can only imagine that my volleyball coach maybe had gone through something similar. And that she was unknowingly perpetuating. And so I really, now that I've gotten older and thought about that, I'm like, dang. But yeah, that was my first time like really starting to be like, oh, so thin equals worthy. And so then I went to college and I'm playing basketball and things were kind of back to normal. It was all about strength and mobility and speed and functional capability. And if you played a college sport, you know this, you have to eat a lot. Your schedule is insane. I have so many friends who played college sports and then when they stopped playing their sport, they just got absolutely shredded because you don't have to eat as much because you're not training as hard. Like your body, when you're playing a college sport, is just like constantly in some sort of state of inflammation because you're working out so much. You usually don't have a ton of time to recover. Maybe a lot of times you're not getting enough sleep, especially if you're in an academically rigorous program. You still need to like study and get your labs done and get everything done. So when I was in college, like I definitely gained weight because that's when I started weightlifting seriously. And so I put on a lot of muscle. And so I was strong. I was doing really well in my sport. And then I didn't really think about it too much. But then when I got into grad school, that's when I kind of started to be around, I guess more of like an aesthetic crowd. I had just had some friends where I just noticed that it was more at the center of that, especially like when I stopped playing basketball and joined like the real world. Like I noticed that there was definitely a lot more focus on looks. And so I kind of was like, oh, so like not being an athlete anymore, I think really was where my kind of journey started. And so, yeah, I kind of mentioned birth control, but I have had like a lot of issues with different forms of birth control in the past. Like I've always just had really bad side effects with all of them. And with pretty much all birth controls, one side effect is weight gain. And I experienced it pretty significantly once I went on birth control. And that was hard for me because I was still working out. I was still being very active. I was still eating a healthy, balanced diet. But to see my body changing still and like getting bigger, despite the fact that I didn't change anything about my lifestyle, just made me feel really out of control. I remember when I defended my dissertation and I got my job here at Colorado State. When I first started my job was when I was like at an all-time low with my body image. I just felt like I looked in the mirror and I didn't see myself. I was like, I don't recognize her in the mirror. And so I would do my best to fake confidence because I've always been the type that I'm like, fake it until you make it. Like if you don't feel confident, just act like you're confident and then it slowly will become that. And so I was still a very confident person, but it was hard just being so active that and nothing changing. And so that's when I started really restricting my calories. And I remember being so hyper fixated on food. And that's when I kind of like knew I had a problem. I was talking to one of my best friends, Lindsay, and I could tell she was a little concerned because I was telling her like how frustrated I was that I was barely eating anything and working out a lot and I wasn't losing any weight, or I was losing weight, but it would only be like 1 to 2 pounds every couple of months. Like it was so minimal. And I could just kind of hear concern in her voice. You guys, I literally I would have a protein shake for breakfast. I would have a tiny little salad for lunch every day with pistachios on it. So it wasn't even like high protein or anything, which was a main issue. And then sometimes I would skip dinner. And like, this is like my first time like talking about it out loud like this. So this is kind of like hard for me to talk about, but I was just not eating enough. And I was really feeling it at work. Like my brain would not function. Like I would be sitting looking at like a chunk of code that I had to edit, and I literally could not get my brain to function and to kick into gear the way I needed it to. And that was hard because I think that it's important to talk about though, because I think when people talk about having eating disorders or like a disordered eating pattern is what I would call that, we think about girls that are really, really skinny, really frail, really thin. But the reality of it is that a lot of girls who have issues with disordered eating look normal. Like I was at a heavier weight and I ate like that for almost a year. I'm not even kidding you guys. It just really got to a bad point where I was skipping dinner almost every single night. I would tell myself like, no, I'm not hungry. Or no, if I just go to sleep early, then like it'll go away. And talking about it now sounds so bad, but I was at a really bad point. And I think I got there just because I felt so out of control of what was happening on the outside. And it got really frustrating when I kind of also talked about this to some of the ladies that I play tennis with. And I remember one of them just said, well, you're just getting older. That's how getting older works. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure like if you work out and limit your calories, you're not supposed to gain weight, which was happening to me. I was like, okay, that made me feel so demoralized. And so anyways, that was a really tough point for me. And after that conversation with Lindsay, where I could just kind of sense her being like concerned, that's when I was like, okay, yeah, there's probably something I'm doing that's not right here. And then also just sitting at work and realizing that I can't focus. I remember going to a doctor to try to like get diagnosed with ADHD because I was like, I have to have ADHD. Like I just can't focus. But then I don't know. It's funny because as soon as I started eating a little bit more, as soon as I started putting carbs in my meals, which I know that like a lot of people like the low carb diet, which generally works for people. But when you're active, you need carbs. And even if it's just a little bit. And so like once I just started adding back like a few carbs, like if I put like that salad on rice, I felt like so much better. And I was just like, dang, the difference was huge. My focus, everything was just different. And so I got to a point where, first of all, with food, where I was just like, okay, I need to eat a little bit more. Yeah, I might like, be this same size forever. And I just have to be okay with it. Like, this is my new body now. I have to be okay with it. And so after I got to that point, I started trying to make changes of like, okay, I'm going to dress in ways that like is flattering on my body, because I know that if I dress better, that'll make me feel more confident. And I started really looking for other ways to make myself feel more confident. And at that point, I had recently signed to model. And so that was almost another way for me to be confident in my new body, was just practicing being in front of a camera, practicing not being so self-conscious about certain poses or certain angles. But it was still a really, really big struggle. I remember at the beginning of last summer, I was really frustrated. And that was when I kind of put two and two together. And I was like, oh, maybe my birth control is contributing to this. And I'm not saying that that's like that for everybody. Birth control is fantastic for so many women. And it's so empowering. And by no means against birth control. I think it's fantastic. For me personally, I just had experienced so many side effects with pretty much every form of birth control you could think of. Like I was on the pill for a really long time. I had IUD. I had the next one on. I used the ring for a bit. Like I've tried everything. And I just always had pretty negative side effects with all of them. And a lot of them, it was weight gain. So I noticed once I got my IUD taken out that I started shedding pounds pretty quickly. And I was like, oh. And so that helped. The real kicker was when I really started working out hard and I kind of stopped worrying about the calories. Now, I think that counting calories can be a really good tool when you're like, I need to make some changes. For me, I realized I was eating a lot of empty calories and I needed to fuel my body more, is essentially what it was. Like my parents always encouraged us growing up. And so once I started making those lifestyle changes and started worrying about food less, I really started to see some results. It's just been such a journey. And so now you guys know, that was kind of a long story, but that got me to where I am today. I'm at a very stable, healthy weight, and I don't really weigh myself anymore. I am at a point in my life where I can trust that I'm at like a stable, consistent weight and that I'm making good lifestyle choices. And so I feel really happy about that, but it was a journey. So total, from the beginning of when all of this started to now, I lost almost 50 pounds. And that's a lot. And for reference, I'm 5'7", and so I'm not super, super tall. And so 50 pounds on my frame is a lot. And so I went, like I said before, I went from being a size 12 to a size 4 or 6. The goal was always for me to feel more empowered to make healthy choices and get enough sleep and eat enough food to where I can think at work, because my job sometimes is just very, very mentally demanding, which I love. Like that's what I signed up for. Sometimes I get frustrated. I'm like, why is my job so hard? Why didn't I pick an easier job? But at the same time, like that's why I love it. And so that's a huge consideration. And I think we look on social media and we see these girls that are just shredded or so tiny. And you don't really factor in the fact that maybe they're like content creators for a living. So they don't need to, function at 100% like mental game on all the time. Or maybe the genetics are different there, and that's not something that you can change. And so understanding that by being healthy and living a healthy lifestyle, it wasn't about looking like someone else. It was about looking like the best version of myself. Once I made that realization, like I could see my body changing before my eyes. Like that's why part of the reason why I like love Legree, because it's so hard, but then you'll like be looking in the mirror and you're like, wait, but I see like my ab popping out. I gotta keep going. But also I literally could see it changing before my eyes. And even like my confidence with wearing like a set to a workout class. When I first started working out, I would never be caught dead in a sports bra and shorts. Being able to just like go to a Pilates class in my like cute little matching set with my leggings and my sports bra and feel confident in that has been so huge. And I started doing that really early on in my fitness journey. I've always been active, but once I started doing Legree and Pilates and kind of finding a workout split that worked really well for me and a workout that I really enjoyed, it made a huge difference. And there's also a lot of community in that. But once I realized like fitness was about becoming the best version of myself instead of doing Daisy Keach's booty workout, which I know is like so 2020 of me to say, but you're not going to look like that. You're going to look like the best version of yourself. And that is absolutely beautiful because like I said, everybody's genetics are different. Everybody's rib cage is a different like width. Everybody's body is just so different, but you can still be really hot. And that's what I've learned. And so instead of like being in that negative mindset of like looking on social media or looking at models that were booking jobs over me that maybe had a little slightly different body composition, despite the fact that we had the same measurements, and understanding that like beauty is so subjective really helped me so much. So I don't know. It just feels, I don't know. I have a lot of feelings about this test shoot on Sunday. I'm so excited for it. I think it's going to be great. I'm working with a photographer that I admire so much. I think it's going to be so fun to shoot with her. But I'm really reflecting on like how far I've come. I'm still like definitely on a journey, but thankfully I have built just that unwavering self-belief that I can do hard things and get through hard workouts. And it's important to fuel my body in the way that it needs so that I can function in all aspects of my life, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that I'm getting enough sleep is really important. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. I know it's a little bit of a more serious topic today, but I just wanted to be vulnerable in that. And yeah, it's just not something I've really talked about before. So I want to know your guys' thoughts. Thanks for listening, and I can't wait to talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye.